I called out a massive 10 RR short banger on NQ along with these other trades here, as you guys can see on my screen, to my private Discord. Again, if you guys want access, then you click the link down below and get started. Here's real quick, some proof of me alerting this again out to the private trading members. And I'm gonna go over the strategy I utilized today as well on how I was gonna call this setup out and how you guys can cash these same setups even without me. If you learn the proper ins and outs from A to Z of my strategy and system. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so for first setup here, this was very straightforward. I'm gonna go in replay mode here so you guys can see everything in live time on what I was looking at here. I was on the higher time frame and I noticed that we were bearish on the right. So we were bearish here, as you can see, creating structure going lower. And I believe at the time, let me see if I can go and replay. Yeah, so we had a gap down here. We broke below the low here, aka suddenly we are bearish here. And because I saw no other unmitigated PY here, everything here is fully mitigated, then my draw is the next liquidity point, which would be this high time frame draw liquidity as a low. Because what I was seeing as price in terms of anticipation here is that we would go bearish here. Maybe we can get an upside move. We will continue this bearish trend until we at least tap into this next unmitigated PY, which is this 1 hour demand below, or at least bare minimum take out this high time frame draw, and then we can expect some sort of expansion move to the upside. Since the left or the higher time frame, technically, if you look at it from this perspective, we are gonna at some point make a new all-time high. So that was the high time frame trend I was looking at. Remember, you guys want to look at your high time frame structure or your external structure first, and then look for your setup on a lower time frame. You need to have your direction clear, otherwise you cannot take a trade on a lower time frame because you don't know where the market's trying to go towards or gravitate towards. And there's a lot of fake outs that occur in the market. So if you're just trying to spam every entry model like a robot, it's not going to work out, and you're better off just not doing that. So you're better off with better anticipation than waiting for even an entry model. That's how important having a understanding of the draw and liquidity is in your direction in trading. Nonetheless, this short or this long setup was super easy to catch because there's a clear draw on liquidity here. Yes, we are bearish, but keep in mind we did take out pre-stay low, and most importantly, my biggest confluence for a setup here is that we had this massive gap here. And this is a true gap, okay? This is not a fair value gap. This is a true gap in the market because there's not a single candle, and these gaps tend to get created during spread hour or huge volatility comes in, but majority times it's going to be just during spread hour. Otherwise, you're going to see at least some other candle in between here, but there's not a single candle, as you can see. And that's why this was my draw on liquidity here to fill this entire gap. Usually we will fill this gap here. It may not always be to the exact tick, if that makes sense. Like we may not always hit to the exact tick up here. I believe if you go on ES here, we actually missed this full entire gap fill by like a few ticks. And that's because if you switch time frames, you want to look for a POI in this gap. And you can see we have this 1 hour candle here above, right? So the gap starts from here to here on the 1 hour. So I basically use whichever PY looks most clearest. 30-minute is a little bit higher, but 1 hour looks very clear. The 4 hour, you can see it's a weird volume imbalance here, so that doesn't really count as a gap. The 1 hour was just the most clear PY that I saw at this time. And so I'm basically looking for a setup to trade towards that gap. And I even called this to the group saying that, you can look for a stop hunter setup here to fill this gap and imbalance. So basically I waited here for this internal low that made a new internal high to get swept and then get my entry to the upside here. So this is where I entered here. My entry was on the candle closure here. You can also have a limit order set here if you want to. Okay, complete up to you. I would have probably had my limit order set here. And if I didn't get filled there, I'll just enter on the candle closure. So I entered on the candle closure here for about 6.8, about 7 RR. And my target was very simply just the bottom of the 1 hour PY or the mitigation point of the 1 hour supply. I didn't want to fully go for this, this full 1 minute gap fill just because, again, these don't always 100 million% get filled. Sometimes we just go for a PY. So keep that in mind, and just keep in mind that the RR is not much of a difference here. You're only missing out on really like maybe 0.5 RR, which over a long run you could say short adds up. But what's worse, missing out on 0.5 RR of your trade or missing out on 6.85 RR? Obviously, it's much better to catch a 6.85 RR than to just throw away all that P&L and profit. So that's why I took this trade here. Again, very straightforward. Hit 7 RTP, boom. Now, as soon as we hit this supply, I was looking for shorts here, and I even called it out to the group. You know, you can look for multiple shorts if you want to off this PY, because we did hit the 1 hour. Now we ultimately did fill and fully hit the 1 minute supply refinement here, but I took the short here off the IFG entry model. If you're wondering what that is, you can look at here. It's my indicator here marking out the entry model for me, signaling me to take the short. So I took the short here, and I believe my target here was much further down here. But anyway, I immediately got stopped out pretty quickly, honestly, off this short. So it didn't really matter where my target here was at this point. I got stopped out. And then here comes a good part. We have an entry model where we mitigated the refined 1 minute PY, as you can see, right? 1, 2, 3 candles. Technically 3 candles. There's a gap here, but you guys get the point. This is a 1 minute unrefined because there's a gap here. And basically looking for this to go lower. Now, I believe if you go on ES, so if you go on ES, you can see here that we actually swept the top of the opening candle essentially here, or closing candle. So right here, we swept the top of this closing candle here, and opening candle was here. So you can use the opening candle as well as session open and close candles as liquidity points if you want. Like you can use this as it almost acts like a data wick. I've done some testing on it, and it does act very similar, just because the gist and general logic behind this is there's a lot of liquidity on the high and low of these candles that open and close the market. But usually it's the opening candle, to be honest. So something like this right at 6 p.m. EST here. Again, you can see a nice short played out here to the downside. And then there's also a nice long that played up to the upside here after the sweep of these both highs. So ES took out the top of this data candle or closing candle. And you can see we missed the PY mitigation above, right? So just be careful about this. You know, you don't want to go for too crazy targets. Like if you were longing down here on ES, you don't want to be going for, oh, I'm going to go for this PY right above this liquidity point, right? If we have a liquidity sweep, there's a chance that we don't always go for the full PY mitigation because liquidity's been taken out already. So that's some pro tip to keep in mind. But let's go back to NQ here. Hit the 1 minute refined PY here. And that is not a good IFG for me to take, because the real true extreme one is down here. You want to be taking this inversion, not the one above. The one above is low probability. So we wait, and I waited for my OB entry model. So right here, here's the OB if you're wondering. Right here on this block here, this is the OB where you would set your limit order. But for me, I was basically looking at covering the entire structural point here, right at the high. Now, usually when I mark my OBs also, you will see times where I mark out the structure with the OB. So this is the OB itself, but structurally wise, technically this here, or at least this, is the entire point, if that makes sense, because this is within one structural move here, and you want to cover structure as well whenever you're trading something like the OB entry model. So that was my trade here. I took this for 10 RR, riding this whole wave to the downside. And I even called this out, like I said, to the private group. You guys want to see? I said, if you're in this short with me, easy call out. There's 2 PYs or TPs on these NQ shorts. Complete up to you where you want to fully exit. I did say I do think we can continue this downtrend to the high time frame draw, since we're bearish on the right and should be going for a high time frame left liquidity sweep. And of course later, hit full TP, telling you guys you can literally trade my strategy with any session or any pair and you will be profitable. I've done extensive backtesting on my strategy, and I'm very, very confident that you can trade it on almost anything. If you're wondering specifically what I've traded it on, I've traded it specifically on oil, Euro USD futures, which is 6E, gold, and NQ and ES. So any of those should be working for you guys as well. Anyway, you see literally the left liquidity sweep, that's literally the high time to draw I pointed out, and you can clearly see this trade played out super nicely in my favor. You see how I'm not going for anything extreme here too. I'm not going for like these lows here or something even further. This to me is very unrealistic. It doesn't make any sense, considering if you go to like the 4 hour, it's very clear, you know, we're gonna go higher here. This is a retracement here, a mitigation cycle to go higher. We're gonna make new all-time highs at some point. This here was a liquidity sweep because this low made a new high. So clearly to me, like, there's no reason to continuously try to keep shorting or going for a crazy target. And 10RR is plenty of money to be made. Some of you guys are getting too greedy on your trades, and you shouldn't be. Again, remember, when you're pro trend trade, look for either week high or week low, and just target that. Don't try to go for anything past that majority times, especially when you have a big gap. Those are times where you can, but make sure you have a liquidity sweep pair with that trade or setup. Otherwise, it becomes lower probability to go for that TP immediately. And so you can see a little bit of drawdown here. We mitigated the OB, and basically what happened here is we had an internal sweep here because this high made a new low. So we had an internal sweep right above right here. This is just how the market fakes people out. People that just react or trade based on price going higher or price going lower, you will lose money in the markets, because you see this big bullish candle. People that are new trading are probably gonna be like, I want to buy right now. We're gonna go higher, take out this high. Nope. Look what happens. As soon as you buy here, you may get stopped out by this internal sweep because you don't know where the market's trying to go. You gotta know ahead of time where the market's trying to go. And I'm not trying to say you need 100% prediction, because you don't need to be 100% accurate on where you think the market's gonna go. But you want to have some type of conviction and direction, at least that's greater than 50% ideally of where direction should be going. Like if we're bearish here, I just want to be following this trend here. More than likely, we're going to take out lows and not hold demand. Yes, we do hold demand at times, right? Here, cool. But more often than not, we're not going to, and we're going to break lower. So just following the trend, just keeping it simple, guys. Some of you guys are overcomplicating your trend, directional trend, and direction. Just follow the trend. Like for example here, bearish here, boom, shorts. This is another short here. And at some point, these shorts will fail. You can see at some point we're not going to go lower because we mitigate something on the left here, and that's okay. Now we went bullish. Now you can still look for shorts here. Shorts played out here, and then a session high sweep, massive shorts to the downside. So you're not gonna, again, like I said, time the market perfectly with every single entry that you take. But your goal really is to follow the trend for as long as you can until it fails. Once it fails, you look for signs of reversal, to look for maybe a setup in the other direction, or wait for a better PY, or even better session liquidity, or some type of liquidity sweep to then take the market lower. So anyway, this is the setup here, going for 10 RR. I signaled to the group. Props to those that took this setup here. I believe someone in the group took this as well. Cool. So it does seem like someone else also in a Discord. Last night, this was pretty late at 1 a.m. But people were taking this setup here, as you can see with me here. Domain, one of the mentorship students that's been with me for quite a while here. He took the exact same trade on 5 fund accounts, made 32K. And then I guess he took another setup here, going with the stop hunter is what it seems like, to take out NQ lows, which I'll show you guys that setup later if you guys are interested in what he's talking about here. But he took that stop hunter setup, one of my A+ setups here, to the downside on 5 fund accounts, and he literally made 42 bands in one session. Literally one session, 42 bands using my strategy. You're not gonna be able to make that type of ROI on any other strategy out there that is taught, just because of how powerful the frequency and the expectancy of my strategy is. The EV, it's very high. So you can see with this trade here, we kept going lower. Again, we're gonna get reactions here, right? I'm not afraid when we get entry models going against me. I know these are likely gonna fail because they're going against the trend. People that are trying to long here, they're gonna get stopped out. People long here are gonna get stopped out. So I don't mind all this. You just gotta be patient and wait for a trade to hit TP. Now, if you're not patient enough, I told people you can just TP here. There's a 5-minute PY here for this forward sword, right? If you guys look at the screenshot I sent you guys earlier on Discord, you could just TP'd earlier if you want to, but for me, I had very high conviction in this setup going to the downside. So I'm waiting for literally everyone, all the traders teaching y'all to trade entry models. You're getting stopped out here, off the sweep, you're getting stopped out. Technically, this is inducement here for this PY below, but regardless, people trading other entry models, you're getting stopped out here. And we're printing money over here. You can see there's how many times the market tried to trick people to go into the upside. These are false moves in the market. You don't want to be taking these false moves. You want to be trading with the trend. No matter how much confirmation, I tell you guys all the time, but no matter how much confirmation you can have in your entry model, it doesn't matter if you're on the wrong side of the market. You can even see there's a nice setup here. Let me see. Did we take a setup here? I was looking to see if we had a stop hunter even here prior. We did not. Okay, we had no really major stop hunter here, but I did believe we had one later. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we did have a major stop hunter set up here. So target this high here, I made a new low. Your entry for stop hunter would have been something like this. Depending how much you want to cover PY wise, and then you get 6 RR out of this trade. And look at what happened. Like my prediction of the market was late to the tick. Go to the 1 hour and look what happened after this. After we took out my high time withdrawal, tapped in this 1 hour's demand, price literally skyrocketed. Just like how anticipated, because this is following the 4 hour trend, guys. Following the 4 hour trend here. Again, we're going to be making this next high, in my opinion, and at some point, all-time highs. Anyway, hope you guys do enjoy today's video. If you guys want to learn more from me, click the link down below to join the one-on-one mentorship. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.